There we go, we got a boil.
All right, so we're getting really close here. I'm about ready to go ahead and take the grits off, and then I'll boil up some more water so we can poach that egg. Hi friends, hey, welcome back to the Expeditionary Johnny channel. Hey, if you're new to my channel, you might notice my theme to my channel is removing obstacles to getting outdoors. That could include things like time, ideas, or equipment. And today's video is about equipment. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Kettle. Alright, so why am I talking about the Kettle today? Alright, if you go through my library, you see I've got a small playlist, and I've done a few videos on this one. I've compared it to a couple other stoves. I even did one video on asking whether or not the claim that this is a survival tool, whether or not that claim holds water or not. Let's go ahead and take another closer look at the Kettle, and let's talk about what it does well, what it doesn't do so well, and what are some real life, survival situations that you might find yourself in, and whether or not this is the right tool for you. Okay, so let's get into that. Okay, so what is a Kettle? All right, well, as the name implies, it's a kettle, which means it's designed to boil water. Now, if you take a look at it, it's shaped rather like a milk jug. It's tall, it's really fat, it's got a hole in the middle of it, but there's a reason behind that, okay? Alright, so the Kettle is really nothing new, okay? It was designed back in the late 19th century, and it was designed to boil water with a minimal amount of fuel in a very brief amount of time. Now, overseas in like Europe and England, you might hear it as a gilly kettle. It's rather popular here in the United States for campers, again, to boil water, make your coffee and stuff. A lot of people really like it because you can use just twigs off the ground. Okay, you don't have to do a lot of processing. You don't have to go to the store and buy a canister stove. All right, so let's take a look at the basic kit for the Kettle. Okay, so you have a base where you make your fire, and you got your kettle, which rests on top of that. Okay, and you're gonna notice, you'll notice that the base here has two holes. That's where oxygen comes in. Then the fire is going to come up through this channel here in the center of the kettle. Okay, so the oxygen comes up through the base, up through the actual kettle itself. So you're going to get a lot of heat and contact at the very bottom, and then also contact all throughout the entirety of the kettle, which means you're going to get a very rapid boil. Another attachment you can get is this hobo attachment here. It can, while you store your kettle, it rests inside your base. And then after you've boiled your water, if you want to continue to simmer your food, you can take your hobo kettle on top of your base, and then you can continue to cook. Okay, so if you have access to things like fat wood or maybe birch in your area, you can use fat wood or birch bark to get your fire started, okay? If you don't, that's okay. You can always carry a fire starter like some Vaseline cotton balls. Alright, so what I've done is I just laid a few twigs in the base of for our kettle. Now, I do want to let you know, it's been raining a lot here, so the wood is not the driest. But guess what? That's the reality of life, okay? So let's go ahead and put a little bit of fat wood in there. Now, to get our fire started, I'm just going to use my everyday carry. I've got my former Swiss Army knife. Always have this in my pocket. Always have a keychain ferro rod. This will be all I need to get the fire going here. If you want, you can go ahead and throw a few twigs on top here just to kind of get it going. Make sure you keep the twigs down smaller than the size of your base. You don't want that growing outside. You don't want your kettle to kind of fall over here. So size is important. Size matters. Now that should be good enough for me to go ahead and put the kettle on top of our base, okay? Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Now to feed your fire, you just take your twigs and you drop it in the center of your kettle. Alright, so you can see that base is nice and hot now. Alright, so you can see here I've try to put minimal amount of fuel in there because you can see how quickly you can overcrowd this. But it's going pretty strong. We'll be getting a boil here shortly. There we go, we've got a boil. Here's where you gotta be careful with the Kelly kettle. To take it off, you gotta use your handles like so. Okay? You don't want to let your handle swing up over the top because you're going to burn yourself, okay? Let's get our whistle off there. Now to pour your water, you have to hold your chain and your handle and use the chain to tilt your kettle. And you go ahead and just pour water in there. Gotta love a good cup of coffee. Good stuff. Alright, so there you go. That's how you boil water with the Kelly kettle. Now, again, this video is about, is this tool a good survival tool? So next, let's head out to the woods. Let's do a little bit of cooking. I'll try to show you what I think the Kelly kettle does well, maybe what some of its limitations are. Then we'll talk about some different scenarios and see, and I'll let you decide whether or not you think this is a good survival tool for you. Okay, so we're down in the woods now, and it's time to do a bit of cooking. Now, for all you Kelly kettle fans, or those of you that are considering purchasing a Kelly kettle, I want to let you know my channel primarily revolves around hiking cooks. So I like to go out for day hikes, and then I like to cook up good food. So that's where I'm going to kind of focus my energy on. And so right now my mind's saying, all right, Kelly kettle, it boils water really well, and then I've got this little base which can work for simmering and finishing up food. So what can I do today to show you that you haven't already seen? I mean, I don't want to just boil water and pour it into some mountain home meal and reconstitute it. Let's start thinking about possibilities. So I have an idea. All right, so what do we all like? We like breakfast food, right? So I'm a good southern boy, so I'm thinking, why don't we make up some grits, and then let's take some of our hot water from our Kelly kettle, let's poach an egg. All right, so let's do that. All right, so I'm going to start with a Vaseline cotton ball. I carry this on all of my hikes because you can't always count on foraging for, you know, like fat wood and birch bark and stuff like that. So let's put that in there. Grab our ferro rod. All right, so just to give you guys a heads up, it's really wet out here today. It's been raining a lot here in Nebraska. So while that fire builds up a little bit, let's go ahead and put some water on a Kelly kettle. Okay, so I put a lot of twigs at the bottom of this one because I really want to get a nice bed of coals here so we can finish up our grits and also poach our egg. Okay, so while the Kelly kettle's doing its thing, let's go ahead and set up so we can cook our grits. All right, so I like this here coffee mug. It's nice and flat bottom. I can go ahead and cook in this. I also make coffee, and actually this time I'm going to make poached eggs on this one. Okay, so I have some quick cooking grits. I've added a little bit of butter flavoring to it. Going to go ahead and just pour that in here into my coffee mug. All right, to that we're going to add 1 cup of water, and so that I know how much 1 cup is, I've got my little green cup inside my little cook kit. Now, if you choose to go with instant grits, you might do something. Bring out like a little silicone cup here, expand that out. You can put your grits in there, just pour your hot water right in there. You don't even have to simmer it. All right, so we're getting really close here. I'm about ready to go ahead and take the grits off, and then I'll boil up some more water so we can poach that egg. All Alright, so it's nice and bubbly now. I think we can take it off here in a minute. There it is. We got the hobo stove on here, and I'm going to have to throw a few more twigs on here to some bigger ones so we can poach our eggs. Alright, so we're going to use our Stanley cook kit here. Let's get our teacup or our whistle off of there. Pour our water into that. There we go. Alright, let's get our water over our hobo stove. Okay, we're about at a boil. So when you're going to poach eggs, you might want to add a little bit of vinegar to it to help it stay together. That's apple vinegar, or this is apple cider vinegar. Oh no! Looks like we wrong vessel to poach an egg in. Oh well. Still got it. I mean, still cooked it. Let's just drain off some of that water there. Well, I certainly did not expect that egg to drop so far down in there. I've poached eggs before in a regular pots in the kitchen, so I guess maybe next time I might choose a smaller camp cup. But let's see how it turned out though. Yum yum. Tastes good, even though the yolk didn't stay together, but it still came out fine. I mean, we cooked it to the right amount. All right, so that's what the Kelly Kettle does well. It boils water. You can see we got this hobo stove that we can kind of simmer and finish things off. All right. So now let's talk about other areas that Kelly Kettle dabbles into, and we'll see whether or not it's a good fit. So there is a grill attachment on this that you can use. My question is why? It's like this item is designed to boil water, so it can get into the grilling arena. My question is, why would you want to do that if you want to grill things? There are better options than that. What I did not show you in the video is I had to spend a lot of time nursing these coals to maintain the right heat, okay? All right, so let's talk about survival. All right, what scenario are you planning to survive from, okay? Now me, I'm a day hiker, so I like to do a hike and cook, all right? Sometimes I'll do some overnighters, and I brought in some supplies. So the scenarios I'm worried about is I get injured or maybe I get disoriented, okay? And so the odds are I'm going to need to be out there for a few days. I am not planning to go Grizzly Adams, and I don't think many people can go Grizzly Adams, okay? With that being in mind, that's why I've gotten survival training from some good survivalists, all right? And so here's what I think of. All right, so you're going to need your shelter. If you've gone camping, you've probably already brought the shelter. You're going to need water, right? Okay, so I have a stream behind me, so hopefully I picked out a stream while I'm out there. I can get that water. If I don't have a filter, I can boil it to make it safe. Kelly Kettle, you can boil water in it. Here's the problem, okay? Here's the con. This opening, pretty small and narrow, all right? And the kettle is quite large, so you might have a hard time getting it down into the creek or whatever water to get your water, okay? Also, if you get dirty stuff in there, it's going to be almost impossible to clean out, okay? That's why you're going to see is like I'll carry something like this single wall stainless steel water bottles. A bit easier to work with. I got a wider opening. It's going to be easier to clean out if I need to later. Okay, I can boil water and that just throw that directly on the fire. All right, so that's what you can do for survival. Now, okay, now let's also talk about fire, getting the fire started. Ideally, if you're smart, you've already brought out some fire starters, but what happens if you run out after that? All right, so if you're lucky, you can find some fat wood or maybe some birch. Now, if you're in a location like I am, that stuff's hard to come by. However, I do have an option, right? Typically, I can find a bunch of cedar trees out here. I can pull off the bark and I can rip that up and I can make a bird's nest. As another alternative, if you're good at it, you can do friction fire. Like I'm pretty practiced in bow drill fire. So this is my go-to method if I need it in an emergency, okay? How well does that work with Kelly Kettle? Well, the base for the Kelly Kettle is quite small, okay? All right, so you can only make a very small bird's nest to get your fire going on here, which means you have to really babysit it quite a lot. Now, if you spend any time using a bird's nest to make a fire, then you know you probably don't want to be confined to something like that, all right? So me, I'm either going to go for the ground option, where I can just have a bunch of twigs on there, or I'm going to use something like this fold-up stove here, where I can just cram it into there and it works up really quickly. So I would go for something like that. This one, is it possible? Sure, maybe. You know, again, it takes a whole lot of work. All right, so now that we've done a bit of cooking here in the woods, and we've talked about, you know, the bit of survival, if you've happened to bring the Kelly Kettle out into the woods, you know, what are your challenges and what's it good at? Now let's talk about another scenario that could happen to any of us, and then let's see whether or not the Kelly Kettle would be a good option for that. All right, so of all the different scenarios that you might find yourself in where you're kind of getting stranded someplace, I'd say the odds are that it's most likely going to be where your car breaks down out in the middle of nowhere, okay? And if you really think about it, you're probably going to be best off just hanging out there with your car. Nowadays, you got your cell phones, you can call for help, all right? Even on this dirt road here, I've got traffic coming and going nonstop. So what they say, typically you last about 3 days without water. You don't really want to go that long, but so you can always keep some water here in your car. Now, at some point in every survival situation, you're going to have to make a decision. Am I better off staying put, or do I need to do self-rescue and get out of there? And there is a point of no return, okay? In my mind, that point is when you get down to about 64 ounces of water. Now, why 64 ounces? That's because 64 ounces is about all the amount of water I can carry in my get-home bag. You can see I got a 1 liter water bottle here, and then I've got another 1 liter water bottle here. Now, when choosing your equipment, you probably want something that you're most likely to use. So I always choose something that goes as part of my daily life and also can be part of the emergency kit. So I chose this water bottle simply because it fits in my console right here, and it also fits in my backpack. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about that point of no return and our decision to self-rescue, okay? So we're going to grab our backpack and we're going to head on out of here, okay? And now this is where you're going to have to decide what goes in this backpack and whether or not the Kelly Kettle has a place in that for you. Okay, let's start with the backpack itself. Nothing special, $30 cheapie I got on Amazon. Pockets are just big enough for me to hold a couple water bottles. That's important. Now, as good as the Swiss Army knife is, you probably want a little bit more than that if you're bugging out a little bit, okay? So I've just got this little canvas pouch. I've got cutting tools, Gorilla Tape, fire starters, just the usual things that everybody talks about in any survival situation. So this is kind of heavy, and we just dropped this at the bottom of the backpack. So if you're on the move, you got to be prepared to spending the night outdoors, okay? And so when it comes to shelter, you know what, you want to be under something, on something, and in something. So let's talk about that. All right, to get under something, to get yourself out of the elements like rain, sun, hey, military poncho or some type of tarp works well, and you can put it either in a Ziploc baggie or you can, here, this little Molly packet. So let's put that in the backpack. You might ask, why did I do two? Well, if it's raining, I want to have something to build a shelter. The other one, I want to be able to walk around if I have to gather wood or kindling material, something like that, so I can actually move around without getting soaked. All right, so here I have a military poncho liner. It's great. Sometimes people call it a whoopee.
All right, so I can use that as a blanket. If I use the ties, I tie it together. I can make a sleeping bag. Now notice something. This thing takes up a bit of room. And this is the tricky part about any emergency system. What do you sleep in to stay warm at night, okay? You can bring a sleeping bag. You can bring a compressible quilt. Whatever it is, you're going to have to live with it and carry it. So let's go ahead and put this inside our backpack. Okay, so now our backpack is starting to get filled up, and this is where we have to make some tough choices. Do you want some food? You might think about things like ramen, some packets of tuna. You want you got a sweet tooth, maybe a little fruit snack here, a little bit of sugar. That's going to help you out. That'll go here in the outer pocket. Okay, now that my backpack is getting really full, now I've got a really tough decision to make, okay? Up till now, it's been pretty straightforward. Now, with this little bit of room, what else am I going to carry, okay? So it's got to be effective and fit, okay? So let's look at two pieces of equipment that we might consider. So this video is about the Kettle, right? Look how big this thing is. And that doesn't even include the top one, like the hobo stove, right? This is just the Kettle. Can I get this thing in my backpack? Maybe? It'd be a really tight fit. That's an awful waste of space right there on the inside. Okay, and it only boils water. So is this the item you want to carry? For me, you might want to do something that you get a lot more bang for your buck. Like right here, we got a Stanley Cook kit that nests right inside a coffee mug. And then inside of this, we've got cups if we need it, all right? We can store things inside of this if we want to. So with this setup, I can boil water in two different vessels, all right? I can cook my ramen in it if I want to. This one is a single-use item. It boils water, and that's it. So let's put this into our backpack. And with that, we put on our backpack, we head out. So what other areas can we talk about with Kettle? Alright, so what other areas can we talk about when it comes to the use of Kettle? Uh-oh, now I done it. I done broke down on the side of the road. What am I supposed to do? Kettle. Well, the base for the Kettle is quite small. So on this hobo stove, you can put some branches up on the side here. There's an opening here. It's really important to have a nice bed of coals there so you can keep it going. So I do have a flame down there. This will turn to a boil